Hi, folks. Thanks for joining the session. I want to talk about working backwards because it's something that has really changed the way that I approach any kind of improvement effort, any kind of implementation, any kind of um, adoption of new techniques or change management. I really think it's valuable. And so part of this is about establishing a clear target. And then most of it is really about uh, navigating towards that target by leveraging a roadmap that I found extremely valuable. So let's dive right into the material. So what are we going to be talking about? We're going to be talking about the challenge at hand, an example challenge that we'll use to kind of frame this. And then we'll get into the target. So how do we identify a valuable target? How do we understand it? Um, and then we'll understand how to leverage the roadmap to actually navigate towards that target. And then I'll leave you with some resources that'll help you take this on yourself and learn more about it. So let's talk about the challenge. Um, in a lot of organizations, what I do is something called outcome mapping to really figure out what do we want to do, right? And that comes from um, collecting information from a bunch of different stakeholders. It's getting people in a room, getting people on a Zoom, and putting their ideas, their thoughts, their questions, their pains onto a collaborative space. And then what we do is we work it all together to understand what is the most valuable thing that we can do to move forward. And so in this case, what we're going to start with is releasing more often, right? Very common driving force behind platform adoption and tooling and enabling developers. But it's just an example. This could be any target outcome, right? We want to understand more about this. The challenge is really understanding what to do about that, right? So once we have a target outcome defined, we're going to look at benefits. So what is this actually for? What is the value that's provided? Why should we do this thing? And so this really gives us clarity on what is valuable about the target outcome for different groups, right? We have external customers, we have internal stakeholders, we have partners, we have individual contributors, we have leadership, we have middle management, we have all these folks who all want something for different reasons. So this allows us to get all that together. Maybe we vote on what we all think are the most valuable things. This is a very simplified representation, but this can be a final copy of something that starts out very messy and we just vote and discuss our way to something very clear. Then we want to understand what are we going to trip over on our way to our target destination, right? So talking about obstacles is really valuable to just highlight things that we need to make sure we avoid or we address to maximize our odds of success. And then in terms of what to do about this, we could talk about how we get started, right? What are the things that we're going to do? Sometimes that's assessment, sometimes it's mapping more things out. Sometimes there's a little pilot or experiment that we can run. Maybe it's a survey, but we lay all this out and all of a sudden we have a high degree of clarity and confidence in the target that we're setting for ourselves. And how do we make sure that we actually achieve that target, right? So we're talking about releasing twice as often. That's bringing me to thinking about the flow of work, right? Or you might have heard of this in the context of value streams. So how do we understand where the constraints are in the entire process beyond the visibility that we have inside of maybe tech or one enabling team, maybe from the perspective of a business architecture team? We can't really see where the constraint lies in the workflow because we're not in it. We're not spending time in it. So what we're able to do is really think about this in terms of holistically representing a value stream, understanding the flow of work that's involved. And that comes from looking at customer satisfaction backwards, right? We're working backwards in the workflow through all these separate activities that begin with a business hypothesis, something we think is really valuable. And this flows out through the workflow to customers. And then we iterate back through and learn, and we adjust and we adapt over time. But really, by looking at this end-to-end workflow, this value stream is really how we understand a couple of things really clearly. First of all, we understand that what we're doing is for customers, right? The workflow is all in service of customers, whether those are internal customers or external customers. And that critical to delivering that outcome is the workflow. So it's really important to think about these things in terms of value streams, because value stream management has been a thing for 100 years focused on this exact problem. And there's a lot that we can borrow from in the context of building a platform that enables a improved flow of work and improved delivery of value. Because we've been doing that in the physical space for decades and decades, and we've been doing this in knowledge work for decades as well. But this is starting to really, really take off. So how do we actually act on this insight? How do we actually address the flow of work and that target outcome that we've set? Releasing twice as often, or improving quality, or driving down incidents. That's where the roadmap comes in. So starting from wherever we are, we can look at assessing our current state. I'm going to share a tool that you can use to do that very effectively from a high level, talking about value stream management. We're going to set that target. So our vision for the future might be releasing twice as often. It might be fewer incidents. It might be higher customer satisfaction. It might be a combination of those things, in which case we might want to prioritize, right, and get really clear about which one we're going to target first, and what's going to, what we're going to get to eventually. Then what we want to look at is, what are the things that are going to deliver that vision, right? What are the workflows that are involved in delivering that target outcome? So in the case of releasing twice as often, maybe it's a single product team, maybe it's multiple agile teams, maybe it's an agile release train, maybe it's multiple project teams. It could be any number of people, teams, or groups, but by setting the target, we can understand the scope of that, right? What's involved in delivering that target outcome. And then we can organize representation from all the stakeholders who are involved there. So we want to get leaders involved. We want to get contributors to understand where the pain points are currently, where the opportunities are. We get them together. We map out the workflow. We understand, what does the current state look like? Where are the bottlenecks? Where are the constraints? I've got other talks about this, so if you're interested in that, I'm all about value stream mapping. You can find a ton of information if you just search for my name on YouTube. Then if we want to scale this up, automate it, make it continuous, we can connect tools into a value stream management platform. So we can use a dashboard for that. We could use a common tool like Jira and just try to create a dashboard that collects metrics on the performance of the workflow. But we've got to start pulling in data if we want this to be automated. Unless you want to be mapping on a regular basis to understand performance, collecting the data by connecting tools is really the way that you kind of automate that and make it continuous. That's going to allow us to inspect the workflow and understand where the constraints are, where the hotspots are, where we should focus our energy. And in terms of platform adoption, that's going to allow us to focus on the things that are actually impacting workflow, the things that are actually impacting outcomes, the areas where we're not meeting our security objectives, where we're not creating value for customers, where we have excessive delays or too many handoffs or too many dependencies. All this can be inspected in terms of workflow, which is ultimately what customers care about, how long it takes to get things that they want. So this is all kind of framed in the context of what's really valuable to the business and really valuable to customers and really valuable to really anybody who is interested in the success of the organization. So you'll find that it really drives better conversations when you're talking about things that ultimately matter to the most important stakeholders in the business. After inspection, what can we do? We can act on what we discover, right? So we can change the way that we're working, we can do different things, we can improve what we're doing, and all that can kind of create this virtuous loop where we can continue to inspect and adapt. But overall, this kind of follows a classic pattern, like an OODA loop pattern. So observe, orient, decide, and act. In this case, we're starting with orientation. We're starting with understanding the landscape, setting a target, and then understanding what to do and processing the feedback from our actions. So all this goes back many, many decades to really scientific practice of continuous improvement. But hopefully this provides you a framework that is really clear, where you build off of initial momentum, definition, clarity, all the way out to full automation and continuous improvement. So this has really been about envisioning for the most part. I find that that's a part where folks really get stuck or they set off in the wrong direction. Working backwards from a target outcome and understanding that outcome together with everyone who's involved is really the secret sauce to getting started in the right way. Otherwise, you could spend a lot of time wandering around, wasting time, focusing in the wrong places. And a really clear target helps you with everything that follows downstream. It helps you to identify the right scope. It helps you with getting the right people involved, and so on and so forth. So if you're interested in getting started, so the second stage of the roadmap was assessment. I was part of a group that created this value stream management assessment with comparative agility. You can go to their website and fill that out for free. And they have a charge to fill it out as an entire team. But when you fill it out with your whole team, you get data on everybody's perspective on workflow and continuous improvement and all these aspects that are important to value stream management. And that's going to really help you sit your platform adoption on a sound foundation, right? Value stream management has been a practice for large scale continuous improvement and optimization for decades and decades. It's really starting to take off in the software world, but you'll find that it really gives you a strong foundation to not only think clearly about what to do about workflow and value delivery, but also a really solid foundation and language to talk to business folks, leaders, your peers, your teams, with terms and a lexicon that really resonates, that really matters to customers and business and all the things that we're actually trying to do. And also beyond this, the roadmap itself was developed through the Value Stream Management Consortium, which I'm a board advisor for. We also were the creators of the assessment. We create a lot of material, resources, training on value stream management. And we're building out information around value stream management and platform adoption and implementation. We're working on integrations and interoperability right now. We have a working group. So if you're interested in large scale continuous value delivery and this area of practice, you can hang out with me there. You can scan the QR code and check it out. I think you'll really enjoy it if you're really interested in large scale impact of things like platforms and continuous improvement. Thanks very much for checking out the session. See you at the conference.